Hello to all of our YouTube friends and subscribers. If you saw last Sunday's video featuring the absolutely breathtaking restoration of Rich and Tony Tomich's 1960 Jeep Surigala, you're in for another treat with his accurately restored Air Force Edition Jeep, which even has submersible capabilities, which Rich will explain in full as he narrates this video. Like all of his Jeeps, this one has a special story, so we'll let Rich fill you in on all the details. Now, let's go for a ride.
Hi, my name is Rich Tomich, and I own several Willys Jeeps. I live in north of Phoenix, Arizona, in a rural area, and I built a shop here several years ago to restore Jeeps, which are my passion. When I was in high school, my first car was a Jeep. My favorite Jeeps are the post-World War II civilian models, the CJ2, the CJ3, the DJ3s. They're very colorful. They're very much the same Jeep as the military Jeep. They're just the military Jeep with a few fancy things added to them and painted in bright colors. And that's what I had in high school, and that's what I like the best. So most of my collection are civilian models, but I do have one military model. It's a model M38. It's a 1952 M38 that was built for the U.S. Army. Now myself, I was in the Air Force. I spent 20 years in the Air Force. I was a pilot. I flew the F-4 and the F-16, and I spent 2 tours out at Luke Air Force Base in near Phoenix, Arizona. And I was part of the 58th Tactical Fighter Training Wing. I retired in 1990 as a lieutenant colonel, and then went on to fly for Southwest Airlines. The Jeep I have was acquired actually at first by my brother. I noticed I was stationed at the time in the Air Force at Vance Air Force Base in Enid, Oklahoma, and I saw an ad for an M38 for sale. So I went over and looked at it because I've always interested in looking at old Jeeps, and it had a very good price on it, and it was in excellent condition. And I was in the Air Force. I was just a young captain at the time. I didn't have a lot of extra money. So I called up one of my brothers and I said, hey, there's a really nice M38 here. How would you do, would you like to buy it? Or I can buy it for you and then you can come down and get it. So he says, sure, go ahead and buy it and I'll come and get it. So I did. I bought it, he came and got it, took it up to Washington State, where he kept it for many, many years. And he was going to restore it because the paint had been faded and it had been passed down historically. It started off as a U.S. Army Jeep, and then it was given to the Arkansas National Guard, served there for a while, and then the National Guard sold it surplus to Brown University, not the big Brown University, it was another Brown University, and they sold it to the civilian who I bought it from. So it's had a storied history as far as that goes. Well, my brother decided he was going to restore it, so he disassembled it all the way down. He was going to do a frame-off restoration, took it all apart, and then lost interest in it. So he called me up one day and said, hey, I don't think I'll ever get this Jeep back together. Do you want it? And I said, you bet. So we did a trade. I had a CJ2 that he liked, so I traded it for the M38 in parts. So he brought it down to me in a trailer, and here was a frame with a bunch of boxes full of parts. He had not taken the time to label anything. And so I've got all the parts, but I don't have a clue as to what bolt goes where, because he had totally disassembled it down to the last nut and bolt. So I started a restoration on it. It took me I've restored a couple of civilian models, and it normally takes me about 2 years to do a full restoration frame off. This restoration took 7 years because every bolt I had to go to the Army manual, figure out where it went, what it belonged to, and restore that part. The other challenge, the reason it took so long to restore it, was because it was a military Jeep. There were only 50,000 M38s made. They were a basically a modified CJ3A that during after World War II, when the Korean War started, the Army needed more Jeeps. So they went to Willys to make more Jeeps. They weren't making the old MB anymore, but they said, we can take the CJ3A, modify it, we'll call it the M38, and that'll be your new Jeep. So that's what happened. There were some unique things, too, about the M38. The Army wanted it to be submersible. They wanted to be able to cross a river underwater if necessary with the Jeep. So everything on the Jeep has been waterproof. The wiring harness, all the air cleaner, the carburetor, everything, transmission, engine, are all vented to the air cleaner, which was attached to a snorkel that they could put on when they came to a river, and also an extension on the exhaust pipe, and then they could actually drive the Jeep underwater. As it turned out, it was a great idea, but not that practical. They found out the rivers were generally too fast moving to really drive anything underwater. So that was probably one of the first and last vehicles that they waterproofed to that extent. But it is unique in that respect, and I had to spend a lot of time finding all the necessary waterproof parts, because a lot of them had been replaced with non-waterproof, for example, the ignition system. So I had to get a new distributor, waterproof wiring, waterproof spark plugs, and on. So that took a lot of time too. When it came around to painting it, I decided I didn't have an Army career, I had an Air Force career. So I would paint it as a 58 Tactical Fighter Training Wing Jeep that would be used to ferry air crews out to the airplanes, which in my day, when I was flying the F-4 and the F-16, we used pickup trucks. But prior to that, they used Jeeps a lot to take the air crews out to the airplanes. So I says, well, this Jeep's going to be an Air Force Jeep. And this is kind of true to form too, because when the Air Force was formed, I believe it was in 1947, when the Army Air Corps became the Air Force, the Air Corps had always felt like they were second-rate citizens in the Army. In the Army, if you weren't in the infantry or the artillery, then you were just one of those crazy flyboys and you didn't really count. Well, the Army Air Corps resented that. So when they became a separate service, the U.S. Air Force, the order came down from the commanding generals that we don't want to see any olive drab vehicles on an Air Force base. So they directed that anything that was olive drab would be painted Air Force blue. Technically the color is called strata blue, but so that's what happened. When the Air Force was created, they had all these air bases, they had all these Jeeps and trucks and stuff, and they took them to their local paint shop and they painted them blue. And so just about every Air Force Jeep, if you scrape underneath the color, if it's original paint, you'll find some olive drab under there. Now, when they painted them, every air base did it a little bit differently. It's hard to find two ex-Air Force Jeeps or trucks that are painted the same. There were general guidelines. They had to cover everything that was olive drab with strata blue, but each paint shop did it differently. Some paint shops took the Jeep apart, painted the pieces separately, put it back together. Other paint shops just painted right over the top of whatever was there, and sometimes they even painted over the mud and dirt and whatever state the Jeep might have been in when it arrived at the paint shop. I elected to go ahead and paint it in pieces and then put it back together, and all the markings on it are for the 58 Tactical Fighter Training Squad wing, of which I was a part. As I said, it took 7 years to complete it. I just completed it a couple years ago, and in fact, it's still a few items I have a top for it, which hasn't been put on yet because I'm missing one of the bows, but it looks like I'm going to have to fabricate it because I can't find the correct part. But that's Sir William Wallace and his story. As far as my future plans for the M38 is I plan to drive it and enjoy it as long as I can. I do own a warbird aircraft, so one of my things I want to get done is take it down and take a picture of it with my airplane, which I think would make a great photograph. It's the thing I like about the M38 is it's, again, like all the little flat fender Willys Jeeps, they're very responsive, they're fun to drive, having that stick shift, they're quick turning, they're quick accelerating. Not real great on top speed, about 45 miles an hour is as fast as you'd ever want to drive one. And of course, in the Air Force colors, it's got, you don't see many Air Force Jeeps. I go to a lot of car shows with military vehicles, and they're almost all Army or Navy. So having an Air Force Jeep in there, I think I just like the fact it's a little bit different, and also that's where my loyalty lies.
Thanks again, Rich and Tony, for opening up your collection so that other people from around the world who love Jeeps can see the ones you've lovingly restored. What did you guys think of this Air Force Jeep? Do you remember driving one in the service? Or maybe your dad or grandfather did? Please like and share this video with someone you know who would enjoy seeing the Jeeps we featured in the past 2 episodes. Subscribe if you'd like. We'd appreciate it, and then you'll never miss one of our videos. Join us next Sunday for a feature of all of the Tomich Jeeps. Each one has been accurately restored and continues to be painstakingly preserved for not only Rich's pleasure, but other people who also love these Jeeps. Until then, be safe out there.